I made my first feature film when I was 50, but that's after a lifelong believing that I could do it. So I think we do like to get scared. I'd love to be able to scare people the way that just scared me. Edited on Wednesday, went in on the Thursday, and he went, "Oh, you're going home on Saturday." Shut it down, and I was fired then. Come home, no film, no edit, I'm fired, I'm out of it.
So did you think at that point it was over?
I thought that was it. It was the most depressing air flight I've ever had. I call horror genre spag bowl genre. Spag bowl is something that everybody can make, but very few people can make it really good.
How do you deal with criticism?
I realise you're never going to please everybody. Was yours the chess thing in the...
Yeah, although I watched it back the other day, I was just thinking like, oh, I wish I did this instead, or that should have been...
Of course, yeah. I go more back and say, oh God, I wish I did that, I wish I'd done that.
Oh, well, that's reassuring.
And I think people like to see the journey, don't they, as well these days? Because in the end, your film's never finished. It just hits a deadline and then you let go.
Hello and welcome to my podcast with Clive Tonge. Thank you so much for stopping by to check it out. Before we get into this, I just want to say a big thank you to Clive for coming on and helping me out, at this very beginning of my podcast journey. You really didn't have to come and sit down with me and help me out with this and chat for as long as we did. So thank you so much for coming on, Clive. Clive was my lecturer for 4 years at uni, so it was really nice to have this chat with him at the end of my university journey of 4 years. And yeah, it was very surreal, the guy who interviewed me for my place at uni. 4 years later, sitting down with him and interviewing him, it was a really nice day, and we had a really nice chat about all things filmmaking. And of course, we talk about his film Mara, which you can stream now on Amazon Prime, the Horror Channel, and also Sky Movies here in the UK. And if you're checking this out from the US, it is available on Netflix. Enjoy the podcast.
So Clive, thank you so much for coming to join me today in a very socially distant Stanwix Theatre.
Yeah, it couldn't be more socially distant, could it really?
Yeah, all these red X's behind us here. But no, I really appreciate you coming in and having a chat today. Really appreciate it. Of course, this is a bit surreal for me because 4 years ago, it was you interviewing me for my place here at this uni.
Yeah. I don't remember it, Brandon, that far back, but yeah.
I was about to say, how well do you remember that day?
Very badly, yeah, very badly. But I guess that's nothing. No comment on you, but it's just the sheer amount of people we see coming through. But yeah, I'm guessing you remember it better than me, yeah.
Well, yeah, it just clearly wasn't that memorable, clearly.
No.
That was the day that sort of changed my whole life, really. That was May 2017. I sort of just knew. I came around the uni, met you and stuff, and I sort of knew this was... when something just jumps out at you and you know that's what you should be doing. I followed the instinct and still here.
Yeah, well, what we're doing today is kind of testament to that, isn't it? But yeah, I think you've always had a drive for this stuff, haven't you? And a desire to do it. So
I appreciate
think
that.
it's blatantly true, really. You can tell the people who want to do it, they just can't stop doing it in one way or another. They're the best qualities to have, actually.
So one question I really wanted to ask you first of all, before we kicked off, is can you remember there was a day I came onto campus one day. I think we had a lesson in the afternoon, and I came in early one morning, and I walked through the door, and someone in the class came up to me. I think it was David. He's like, "Oh, Clive's looking for you," and he said it with a very serious tone. You never get called up to the office.
Right. Okay.
You can always drop in and say hello, but if you're getting called in, it's a different story. It's like, oh, that's a bit strange. So I sort of avoided it for a little bit.
Okay.
I went into what I call the kitchen. You call the canteen. Of course, we'll not get into that debate. So I went into the kitchen, had some breakfast, and then Maddie came over. Yeah. And was like, "Oh, Clive's looking for you. You sounded quite serious."
Oh.
Well, I better get up and see what's wrong. So I went up. Can you remember this?
No.
Yeah, so I went up to the office, and you were on your phone, and you went, "Do you know how this Instagram works?"
Oh, right. Yeah, I do remember it now, yeah.
There was like a big moment of relief because I thought I must have done something wrong, or that you asked me how to set up your Instagram page.
Yeah, well, I know you're prolific on Instagram, weren't you?
Right. But yeah, so that was a very scary time for a good hour of my life.
Sorry, yeah. You'd think of as a horror movie director that scaring people would be good, but I do apologise if I scared you then, yeah.
What was it about horror as a genre that made you want to be a filmmaker? And on the back of that, does watching your own horror films back scare you?
I can answer the second question easily first, and the answer's no. I think when you're making a horror film, it's never scary. It's technical. You know, if you think you're shooting, let's just pick a random scene. You know, somebody creeping about a haunted house on their own at night, that's scary. You being on your own in a haunted house at night is scary. But when there's 40 people around, you know, lights and producers and cameras, it's very unscary. So the skill is to make it look scary, you know, in front of the camera. Behind the camera, you've probably done it a few times before, and so yeah, that's not scary. So I suppose that's what makes it hard editing, is to think, you know, this doesn't scare me. It's never going to. But is it? Have I found it? Have I found a formula to make it scary? And unfortunately, you never know until the film goes out what's going to be scary, what's going to work, and what's going to not work. And I think that's why I think to keep doing it and keep making films is a good way to understand what works and what doesn't. You learn from your mistakes, which I think is the best way to learn, really. What was your first part of your question, sorry?
Yeah, so what was it about horror that got you into filmmaking?
I've often asked myself this question in the hope that I'll come up with some deep answer, but there isn't one. I used to love horror films as a kid, and if you think, I mean, I suppose one of the first films I did was like a dark fairy tale. So we took a fairy tale and did a dark version of it. And for that, I did a lot of looking into fairy tales and what was the appeal of that. Why do like kids like grim fairy tales? Because they're pretty brutal. A lot of them are pretty dark. And I think we like that thrill that you can get. But, you know, let me give an example. My daughter, when she was young, started to watch The Wizard of Oz. Right. As soon as the witch came on, the horrible bit, she tapped out. She couldn't stand it, and went to bed and fell out of bed, had a horrible nightmare, and was screaming about, why are the witches? Why would anyone want to be a witch? And I think what she didn't get was the ending. You need to watch your horror film all the way through in order to get the benefit, because what she did then, by stopping, was she went to bed with the terror still in her head. If she'd watched to the end and watched the witch die, she'd have gone to bed happy because the world's back at rest. So I think we do like to get scared. You'd have to read psychology papers and things like that on as to why. There's several theories. But I used to love horror films as a kid, and I always thought I'd love to be able to make people, I'd love to be able to scare people the way that just scared me.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but then, so fairy tales then, sort of in the homework that I did for fairy tales, sort of came to realise there's a lot more history to fairy tales than the Grimm. The Grimms are like part of the way down the timeline. Before then, I think they were even more interesting. And as you've gone through time, leading up to today, I think, so originally fairy tales was an oral thing. Nobody could read and write, so everyone would sit around a fire and tell stories. And if you lived near the forest, there'd be forest monsters lurking in the trees, and they would be there to help you kids to stay on the path so they didn't get lost in the forest. If you lived by the ocean, there'd be sea monsters coming out to tell you kids not to go out to the sea. And in those oral traditions, sitting around the fire, there'd be kids there, adults, old people. So the stories, they would have rude bits in for the adults and scary bits and funny bits, and everything was it was a big sort of community thing. And I think, this is only my theory, over the years, particularly up to last century with like Disney and children's TV, fairy tales, they broke them all up into bits. So it wasn't for everybody. Fairy tales went for the kids, and they became really kind of sanitised, really Disneyfied, where the bad is very washed over, and the adult fairy tales became the horror movies, and they kind of separated the two out. But in the end, what I thought, I mean, I loved fairy tales as a kid, and I think that's why I love horror films, is because if you think about it, fairy tales and horror films, it's the same story. You know, if I pitch you a plot now, it works as a fairy tale or it works as a horror film. So a group, some young people go deep into the forest where they find a cabin. Inside the cabin there's a monster. They have to fight the monster. Maybe one of them dies and then one of them escapes, having defeated the monster. That could be The Evil Dead. It could also be Hansel and Gretel. It's the same plot, but the tone of them is different. One's toned towards kids and one toned towards adults. So I don't know. You'd have to answer that question. I'd have to think, why did I like fairy tales as a kid? Because they definitely were weird and dark. Then I liked the old Hammer horrors and all that kind of thing. But in the end, I've been a lifelong fan of kind of scary stuff, suspense, thrillery stuff. Couldn't tell you why, Brandon. Just like scaring people.
And can you remember the sort of moment when you knew that you wanted to be a filmmaker?
It's something I wanted from about 16 years old, probably. Early. Yeah, but where I grew up in Stoke-on-Trent, which was kind of a run-down place before the internet, even before digital. So the chances of becoming a filmmaker in Stoke is ridiculous. I also wanted to be a rock star as well for a good time. But I think it was in response to seeing how hard my parents worked and then reading about, these people who do make songs for a living or make films for a living. And you think, I don't want to work in a factory. I worked in factories, I worked in these manual jobs. Never really liked them. Well, hated them, to be fair. I didn't want the life that my parents had with all that hard work and cold winters and all that. So I just retained that dream, if you like. It drove me through many bad jobs, and then I was the first in my family to go to uni. So going to university was kind of life-changing for me because I could get hold of a camera. I had a camera in my hand, and it's the first time, and after all that waiting and all that kind of longing to do it, finally, I was probably a bit older when I went to uni, probably in my early 20s. But just the fact that I could get a hold of a camera, that was like amazing, And you think about nowadays, you've got more equipment in your phone than that we had in our course, So, it's great nowadays, really.
When you went to uni, did you know when you went you'd be going there with the intention of making horror films, or were you up for anything at that time?
No, I was definitely up for horror films. That's what I wanted. But strangely enough, like coming out of uni and then a few years later, I was kind of not forced into, but I got to make a film that was very much not a horror movie. And it had a bit of money behind it, and I kind of fought against it for a while, but then I went with it. And that was a little short called Love Lesson. And that's probably where I learned the most about filmmaking, if you think about each little project. It wasn't my genre. I had to make something good out of it. I wasn't totally comfortable, so it forced me to sort of think about, right, how am I going to direct this and how am I going to do this? So that I think working outside your comfort zone, I always think, is where the most learning comes. So if I'd spent my life, I want to make horror films, then I make horror films and make horror films, I don't think I would have expanded much as a storyteller or a filmmaker,
Yeah, because there is lessons in everything, really. So that was like that for us in the first 2 years, when you would I'm admitting everything now that I'm finished. I can say whatever I want now. I'm leaving this uni, but no, in the first 2 years, we would get given briefs to do, and you'd give us the genre, you'd give us what kind of thing you'd like to it's quite a strict brief. And at the time I was like, but I really want to do this, I really want to make that. But now looking back, there is so much lesson in that. And then in the last year, it was great having that freedom to make what we wanted, and you felt more grateful for it. And you've got the lessons there from the past 2 years of, I remember when we did this, and I remember, I've took that away from that, and you can sort of really shape your own films then from that experience. Yeah,
I think the greatest learning, like I say, comes outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And we, as a film sort of teacher, you take a lot of stick from people. It's almost like it's like a wrestler in the UFC. It's a weird analogy. For a wrestler, if it's a wrestler versus a boxer, the wrestler's got to get in close in order to be able to wrestle. But the trouble is, somebody's punching you. So you've got to build into your plan as a wrestler, I need to get hit a few times before I can get to where I need to be. And that's how I'd like to do it with filmmakers. You've got to do a couple of things where I know you're going to feel like you're getting hit and you don't want to do it. And I think the worst thing that lots of people are accused of is like, you're limiting me creatively. And in my head, I'm thinking, that's kind of the point, you know what I mean? Yeah. It doesn't come and you're never going to get a chance in real life to go, I just want to do whatever I want, whatever genre, that's not going to happen. Yeah. So it's getting people into that mindset really, where it's making that jump the same way I jump and thinking, I want to make horror films. Why are they giving me a film about a little girl in a school? This is about as far away from what I want as possible. So you kick and scream and you go, oh, Clive's limiting me creatively and all that kind of stuff.
I've never said that.
That's a kind of general thing, like, why am I doing this, you know? Yeah. But once you get through it and once you accept this is what we're doing, then you commit to that project and suddenly you're making a film that you the last thing you expected, do you know what I mean? And
no, that's very true.
You're in some kind of creative zone where you're thinking, right, what have I got to do here? Yeah. This isn't something I've planned my entire life, what I'm going to do.
Yeah, it's very true, because also them tasks that we did in them 2 years, all of them briefs we had to do very quickly. So it's always in a few weeks, have the final product. So it was sort of, you didn't know what you were doing until that day when we got given it. And it was always, as time went on, it actually got a lot of fun, because it was sort of, we're getting given this thing to do. You know, it's you don't know what kind of genre you're going to be walking into that day. We're going to be spending the next few weeks working on it. You know, let's see what we can come up with it. You know, it's not and I quite like that. Because for me, it's the complete opposite. I think that the horror genre, I think that's probably one of the most difficult films to make. It's very difficult because comedy as well. You know, comedy is very difficult to get right, but I think it's harder to make people scared than to make people laugh.
It's very, very hard, and I think I always call it spag bol. I don't know if I said this to you. Spag bol, yeah. Right. Horror's like spag bol. The analogy, I've got loads of these.
I was going to say, your analogy before, by the way, was incredible.
Really? Okay. Well, there's my spag bol in. I've got spag bol is used for a few analogies actually, but spag bol, I call horror genre a spag bol genre. Spag bol is something that everybody can make pretty much, but very few people can make it really good. And that's the same with horror. It's easy with horror to think you've got right, because you get all the ingredients are there, but not many people get the recipe right.
I like that. That's a great note. You've never told us that one.
Oh no, that's another one of my favourites.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
So you can get all I've got long shots and I've got creepy shots and this and slow moves, and it can feel to you as a director like this is going to be scary because it's creepy and it's slow and it's dark and all that. Mm. But till you play it in front of an audience, you really don't know what you've done. So it's hard to get it just right, you know. And that's really where research comes in, looking at other stuff that's done well. What scares you, you know, and then using that in your film because that's real then.
Yeah. I love that. What a great analogy. Right. You have told us one thing about spag bol quite a few times over the years, actually. You must love spaghetti bolognese, do you? You always
I love my mum's spaghetti bolognese.
Yeah, because you were saying that one of the biggest keys to filmmaking is being good at making spaghetti bolognese, because everyone on a film set loves spaghetti bolognese.
In fact, the secret recipe that my mum makes is on YouTube now.
Oh, really?
So I can put you the link to it. Yeah.
Oh, excellent!
And a couple of students did it and said it's a game changer.
Really?
But I think if you follow that recipe, it will make your films better. That's my theory, because all you need to do is make that the night before, and when you're on set, give it to them. Yeah. And they will work harder for you and better for you, and they will love your spag bol, you know.
And that's the biggest tip that we can take away from today.
It's one of the ways to make your film better is to film the crew with that lovely spag bol.
And that was a secret recipe.
Well, I say secret, yeah. There's no secret ingredients, except my mum's made it her entire life.
Wow.
So she can make the most basic ingredients taste great, which is kind of a good analogy for filmmaking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Simple as possible, but as effective as possible.
Is this on your YouTube channel?
It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's on a YouTube channel, yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to say, one of the biggest things I think where I found entertainment from in lockdown was your YouTube channel that you set up.
Really?
Great fun.
What did I put on there, Brandon? I can't even remember putting that much on it.
You had loads of like little filmmaking tips. There was one night I was up late at night one night, and I got this notification on you because I'm subscribed. I've got the bell on. Everyone go and subscribe to Clive, by the way. And I got this notification popped through. It was like 1 a.m. in the morning, and it was you sitting on a chair and then moving to another chair, but cut. And it was a 15-second cut.
Oh, yes, that was part of a task, yeah.
I was like, what's he doing at 1 a.m. doing this?
Yeah, I had to wait till everyone was in bed, and then I could film it in the house. I was sneezing, wasn't I? I sneezed and popped into it.
There was the sneezing one. It was great. But yeah, honestly, that was it was a lot of fun watching that. It was a lot of fun.
I didn't even realise it. It was for a task I can't remember what it was for, yeah.
Yeah, it really kept me going. One thing that I really do want to talk about in this is Mara.
Okay.
And first of all, congratulations. Beautiful piece of work. Really, really nice piece of work.
Thank you, yeah.
Did you ever think you would make a feature film? And did you know that it would be a horror film?
Well, you never know. You never know. And remember, you've got to remember, Brandon, I made my first feature film when I was 50. So it's hardly, but that's after a lifelong believing that I could do it. I believed I could do it. I definitely wanted to make a horror film, and the rest just happened as it happened, really. My dream didn't really change from when I was 18 to even now, and now I'm in my 50s, So maybe I've got some developmental problems or something,
You're a writer as well. You've wrote a lot of films. When you were thinking about one day possibly being able to make a feature film, I imagine, have you wrote so many different films, and when Amara came through, was that you knew then that was going to be it?
Well, it's not strictly true that I'm a writer. Probably at best I'm a co-writer, I would say, yeah. Although I'm trying to write my own thing now, which is proving really difficult. But what I wanted to be was a director. I knew that I enjoyed doing sound because that's where I started, and then I went into animation, and that was I sort of got lost with that. It was a bit too technical, and then got into film. Started out making music documentaries, but I sort of quickly learned, what do you do if you want to be a director? You do your uni course, you do whatever you do to get the skills. Then what do you do? Do you sit by the phone and wait till somebody rings up and says, "Hey, I want to film directing. Will you do it?" Because that phone call is never going to come. So you could have had this, you go through this thing where it's like, well, what the hell do I do? I'm a director and I've got nothing to direct. What am I going to do here, So sort of quickly realised that I've got to generate material myself. Luckily, because of uni and friends and all that, I knew filmmaker people and new writers, and so I ended up working with a writer called Jono, who I guess I've worked more with him than anybody else. And he's a pure writer. So go back to the ingredients and recipe thing. I guess the most basic way me and Jono work is I'm an ingredient provider and he's a recipe maker, although it does swap around a bit here and there.
I love all these analogies, by the way.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Where have all these been the last few years? I've never heard any of these.
I've had them all, yeah. I've used them, yeah. So he's somebody I would always run my ideas by.
You need that, though, don't you? You need someone to...
It's essential for me to collaborate, yeah. Because I think if you just work alone, and I'm sure every filmmaker and every writer goes through this, where you sat at home and thinking, this is great, and this is a work of genius, wait till they hear this. And then you let somebody read it and they're just completely flat about it, and you feel like it damages your soul, you know what I mean? I put everything into that and it's rubbish, and you go through the I am shit phase of creativity. So I think bouncing ideas off people is really good. And I think one of the big things that separates professional writers from other writers is how they take notes, the ability to take criticism.
When you first sat down to write Mara, is that version that you had in your head completely different to the final product?
Yeah, it went through so many different versions, and it's frustrating, especially as a director, because you think, this is it, we've got a great this thing, sleep paralysis is great, and you have a great idea. I think the reason why people might think I'm super critical, why students think like that, is because I've gone through what I'm trying to advise the students on, of that thing where you've written a script, you put all your heart and soul into it, and you think, this is great, I've poured everything into it, this is all I've got, this is amazing. And then you take it to the next person and they go, oof, I'm not so sure about this, it needs more work. And then you get totally deflated and soul destroyed, and then you pick yourself up and do it again. And it's a very real part of the filmmaking process. It doesn't stop.
It's very true. It's very true.
Yeah.
Whenever I needed feedback, I knew that, you would always give me honest feedback. And, 9 times out of 10, I didn't want to hear it, but I had to hear
Nobody
it.
wants to hear it.
Yeah.
Nobody wants it. And nobody wants the notes where people just simply don't agree with your great idea as well.
Yeah. Because that's one of the things with film as well, isn't it? With it being such a subjective thing. When you look at any review of a film, there's going to be one person who loves it and one person who completely hates it. And that's just how it is.
Or actually, in actual fact, there'll be one person who loves it and 20 who hate it. That's more like the real film. There are 20 people who just want to attack,
Yeah. That brings me up to something that I really did want to talk with you about today, which is criticism in film. Because it's something that you've talked with us about before. And yeah, it's been quite motivational hearing you talk about it before, because it is something that, well, with any creative subject, not just film, music, anything, it is something that you're going to have to go through. And there is going to be someone who doesn't like it. And how do you deal with criticism on your work?
It's really simple, Brandon. It does not affect me one little bit. It doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
I realise you're never going to please everybody. I know the internet and the kind of the comments section is usually full of bile and hatred. And if you can get your head around the fact that it doesn't really mean anything, it's quite fun. I quite enjoy reading the negative reviews. Yeah. In fact, again, with the writer, every so often somebody will say, oh, that director doesn't know what they're doing, blah, blah. And every so often they'll say, whoever wrote this pile of rubbish needs, decapitating or whatever. So I always make sure to screen capture them writing ones and send them to the writer. Say, Jono, look what you did to my movie. Why did he do it?
Do you do that?
Yeah. And it's a source of fun for us, is the really scathing, over negative reviews. So it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
And it's also, I guess, one of my philosophies in life, really, which goes through to the writing, is if there's problems that need to be solved, let's talk about the problems. So if I was asking you for script feedback, I'd give you the script and say, tell me the worst 10 things about it, Brandon. That's all I want to know. Just tell me the worst shitty bits of this, because that's valuable to me. So I always think that in the end, your best advisor, if you like, or the best person to ask, is your worst enemy. Because they're going to want to hurt you. So they're going to find a little mistake and they're going to make it big.
You've always said this, and I've always loved that bit of advice.
Whereas, if I ask my mum for feedback, what's my mum? She wants to be supportive, and so she's the worst person, So the people close to you, my friends, and students say it to her all the time. Well, my friends all read this and they liked it. And I said, yeah, the worst people in the world to give you any kind of honest feedback.
It's really good advice, though. Really good advice.
Yeah, it's taking hard notes and negative notes is a big reality. So whether you like it or not, it's going to happen. Yeah. So you might as well get used to it and understand. That's just part of the process, really.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? And there is always going to be people who love it at the end of the day, anyway. So
yeah, and I guess a lot of people are jealous or they wish they'd done it, or maybe some people just genuinely don't like the project. You know, if you don't like horror films, you're not going to like any of my work. So you know what I mean? That's fair enough. I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, and that's the thing to remember, isn't it? That's the thing to remember. Yeah, I'm a lot better with it now. Like at the very beginning of uni and stuff, you know, I did let criticism sort of affect me quite a lot. But as time's gone on and the years have gone on, I sort of realised, well, it doesn't really mean anything, really, does it? As you just say, you know, it's like, if it's constructive, that's great. You know, you can take it all in and it helps you with future stuff. But stuff like online comments and stuff, it is, as you just called it before there, was it dross?
Yeah, it's fun to watch, you know. It's fun to read.
Mara shot in Georgia, in America. Beautiful location. Looks amazing. How was it filming in such a beautiful landscape?
It was just a stressful shoot.
Yeah.
First of all, so it was shot in Savannah. My vision for this was in some grim, northern, rainy. So we scouted Cleveland, Ohio, which was perfect. Lots of urban decay and all that kind of thing. Grey clouds. We went there in the winter, so it was wet. Loads of abandoned factory buildings. So we thought, this is perfect. Then, because of various financial reasons, we end up in Savannah, which is beautiful, sunshine. You know what I mean? No rain whatsoever.
It's the Sunshine State, is it? Is that what it's called? Or is that Florida?
No, I think that's Florida.
That's Florida.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's the one with the. Is it the orange? The orange.
Yeah, it's got some kind of thing in it. Yeah, I don't know what the Georgia thing is, but yeah, beautiful sunshine, which I love a bit of sunshine anyway. So pre-production was great because it's fairly chilled out. You feel like you're kind of on holiday and you're working at the same time, and you know, like the work is good. You know, so location scouting in the sunshine is kind of fun. Once we started pre-production, I was there. I lived there. I lived in Georgia for the next six months or whatever.
Oh, really? Did you? Wow. Because it was filmed all in 3 weeks, was it? 3 weeks.
It filmed all in 3 weeks, in 18 days. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. When you watch it, you know, much is in it. You would never
it's
think
too
it was
much,
filmed.
really. It's too much for a first-time filmmaker. So yeah, I nearly lost my mind for real a number of times during the shoot. Yeah, because of the nature of the shoot, there were 3 kind of shifts. You work in 12-hour shifts basically.
Yeah.
There's days, which let's say for the argument is 9 till 9. There's nights, which will be like, let's say 11 till 11. These times are not accurate. And then the split days where you kind of start at 6 in the afternoon and finish at 6 in the morning. So mix that into 18 days and everybody kind of lost their mind. Everybody's sleep pattern was really messed up by the end of it.
And you're making a horror film about sleep paralysis.
So that was good, you know. A few of those shots of the cast sleeping on chairs and whatever, they fell asleep. And I said, go shoot them, you know.
Good method acting.
Good method acting, yeah. Everybody's eyes were red. I remember, I think it was actually the last day we filmed in Kate's flat, and it was kind of, I think it was the night when she has a nightmare in her bed in her flat. So there's all this yellow light streaming in, which was kind of looked like daylight. I can't really get these days right, but it was the middle of the night, but it was lit like daylight. Right. So your body was going, it's 3 a.m, I'm knackered, and your brain was going, hey, it's daylight in the morning. So everyone's mind went. It was like everybody had a little bit of insanity. And wherever you looked on the set, it was like a mini insanity was happening. Do you know what I mean?
But that's probably what you wanted for a film like that, isn't it? It works quite perfectly.
Definitely fit the subject matter, yeah.
So I just want to quickly touch on what you said there about Olga was sleeping on a chair and you filmed that.
Yeah, I think that was in the sleep clinic. And then a couple of times in her apartment where... you know, as lots of people say, a lot of filmmaking is kind of waiting round. So you get everything in place, and then you get the actors in place, and then there'll be some technical thing like you know, you've had light failures and all them kind of things.
Well, you weren't meant to tell them. You weren't meant to tell them.
Yeah, look how incredibly well you've gone round it. But those things happen on every set. So there's inevitably waiting around, and if you're on a kind of tight schedule with lots of sleep changes, then people fall asleep while they're waiting around. So, yeah, I think that happened in lots of different locations, to be fair.
Yeah.
How can you not? If you're knackered and I've got a waiting place in a double bed, you're bound to fall asleep, aren't you? You know.
So do you have a lot of memories from shooting in Georgia?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. I mean, it's sort of the biggest thing I'd ever done. You know. So, yeah, a lot of memories.
You actually lived out there as well.
Lived out there. Yeah. So there's lots of basically a year away, really. All told, when you go back. Because we edited in Hollywood for a few months as well.
Was it one of them things where it felt like it just went so quick, like it was like a blink and it was just gone?
It does at the end, yeah. But when you're in it, I've never been so stressed in my life, Brandon.
Right.
I've never known anything like it. High pressure environment.
But you love it, clearly. It's a good stress, isn't it?
Yeah, I think like as other projects start to line up, you know, the closer they get to, like, it's like one of the day. How can I explain this? Like the day they go, yes, your project's greenlit.
Yeah.
And it's finally all the hard work comes to good, and you sort of go, yeah, in your head, and then immediately after you go, oh God, I've got to direct this now. Oh my God, and then a new stress builds.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, I can't say I know loads of directors, but the ones that I do always get the fear. You know, it's a daunting thing, and so much can go wrong. It's like the production. It's like the production's an entity, and it feels like sometimes it feels like all that entity wants to do is to fail, and you're there. Like it's like being on a boat, and all the boat wants to do is sink, and you're running around like the captain trying to block up every hole, and so it was really hard,
Right.
transition.
But more rewarding.
Yeah, well, I wish I could go back and do it again. That would be a thing. I would spend a lot more time planning, which is again why I come into the classes obsessing over the plan. Because especially with smaller productions, you feel like we're planning, we're only shooting a little thing in a room, but if you want to get ready for industry, it's all in the planning. If I'm going to plan my next one a far greater degree than I planned this one.
Yeah. Can you remember the feeling of flying out of the UK and getting on the plane for that time away?
Flying to the USA?
Flying over to live there for 6 months. Can you remember that feeling of the day you left for the film?
Yeah, it's that mixture again, that schizophrenic. Half of me is elated and super happy. The other half of me is like deeply afraid.
Did it feel real for you when you left the airport, or were you still sort of...
It felt real, yeah.
Yeah. You knew that you were going
very
over there
real. This is it now, and you've got a whole plane journey, like that dark night of the soul on the aeroplane, where you're thinking, right, this could be my only chance. What can I do now to prevent me screwing it up?
Yeah. Who did you fly over there with? Were you with other members of the crew, or was it just you on your own?
Just me. Yeah,
just you.
Me, yeah. There was other members. I was flying in to meet
the
American ones, I've not met before, and then my English sort of producer and the writer were going to follow a few weeks behind.
Wow. And how long were you over there before filming began?
Prep was about a month.
Right.
Yeah.
Quick turnaround then.
Very, very quick turnaround. Lots of tech recce's. We had a rehearsal. We had managed to, by hook and by crook, got one rehearsal day. So, so we rehearsed a bit, pre-production, tech recce's, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was probably like a rabbit in the headlights for most of that. But now I know what to do. Yeah. Now I'm ready. I'm sort of a bit more battle ready now.
All of the locations as well, like stunning on camera, weren't they? They were absolutely, like, all the houses and stuff. How long did it take you then in the end to actually put together the whole location scouting and getting everything ready?
Well, it was all done in prep in that month, really. So in that month, I mean, it's a very busy time, but it's also a kind of fun time as well, because you're not under immense pressure against schedules and all that kind of thing. So you're kind of getting to know people, and you get to meet lots of different ones. So I would give a location document and say, this is the type of place Dougie would live in. Then that goes to the location department. They go out and find 6 places, and then at some point I'll go out in the car with them and they'll show me these 6 places and we'll sit and have lunch and talk about them, you know. And it kind of went like that, really.
It's amazing. I could honestly talk about it for hours and hours.
Really?
Honestly.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, it's fascinating, but we don't have that much time, sadly.
Yeah.
So another thing I really wanted to ask about it was, how do you adapt to certain situations? Because I remember you telling us, there's not going to be any spoilers or anything in this story.
Yeah.
But I remember you saying that you had to adapt one scene while you were over there shooting, and it was the scene where she gets onto a boat.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable talking about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not that big of a spoiler, is it, really? So this was a shot idea that's going to come. I'm going to use it another day. I got when I was on holiday in Barcelona, and we went on the underground, and where's my camera? As the train, so imagine my hands are a train at the underground. As it went round a corner, if you were sat in this train, you would see in front of you the carriage would move out, and you couldn't see with it, and then it would swing back in as you straightened up. I thought it'd be great to have a little scare there where there's nobody, it goes out of view, comes back, and we get somebody to stand up and then they're there. And it was like a big set piece which we'd spent time working it out and all that. And then when we got to Savannah, there was no trains basically. And it was just around the time that a crew member, there was a tragedy on a train line where some crew member had been hit by a train. It was a kind of tense subject. They didn't want to do it. Trains were kind of a no-go. So we ended up adapting it to a taxi boat in the end. I mean, it wasn't totally my decision. It's a team decision. I bought friends were on the shoot who'd done films before to kind of support me through it. And when you've done it 2 or 3 times, you really do know your stuff, you know. When I didn't know my stuff at the time. But so we then got a taxi boat. Thought we'd have to rewrite a little bit on the taxi boat, which is a great reason for having your writer around for these kind of unexpected events. You can sort of say, can you go rewrite this a bit while I go over and do that? Instead of me rewriting it, and now my time's taken up doing that, you know.
Because it's an amazing scene. It's a really, really
it
good
looks
scene.
good, doesn't it?
Yeah,
And,
it looks
we
amazing.
had all kinds of, the restrictions on that. I mean, we didn't have endless money to rent this boat forever. It was a working taxi boat. So we had to wait till it wasn't working.
Right.
And then because of, I don't know, local laws and water police and whatever, we got the boat for the night, and we were only allowed to drive it in a circle once. So we had to do all the stuff. We had to pretend it was going along with the boat. We just put a boat engine noise, and it kind of looks like it's going along. And then for a couple of wides of the boat leaving, we just filmed it go around in this circle, and it looks like it's pulling out there, and it looks like it's pulling in there, you know.
And how quick did you have to pull that together?
All in pre-production, in that pre-production month, yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So we did look for railways, and we did try, but it quickly dawned on us that, if the nearest railway station's an hour away, it's not. We're not going to take 3 truckloads of stuff an hour away. Just became impractical.
Wow, it's honestly fascinating though, isn't it? Really is.
Yeah, when I look back now, you do get into a zone. I think the pressure you put on yourself as well, really sort of drive you. They keep you in this adrenaline zone of, I don't know what you'd call it really, but then when you do come down and come out of it, it's like, where was I then, you know?
Because you look at the final product now and it's just seamless.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's, in the end, that's because of everybody involved. That's the work of everybody. I know my name goes on the director thing, but I couldn't have done it without certain people around, for sure I couldn't.
So what was it like being in Hollywood editing? What was that experience like?
Stressful, again. Yeah, because of various things. We lost editors halfway through and had to restart again. Right. So you're supposed to get about 14 weeks for a feature edit at this level, or that's what I got anyway. We did a few weeks with one editor. They walked out because of a dispute with somebody else. Started up with another one, but they didn't give me 14 weeks now. They said, oh no, them 4 weeks have gone. You've got 10 weeks now. So it was even more pressure. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And then what they normally do is, you normally get those 14 weeks to do your director's cut. then it goes to the finance of the producers, and then they have their notes, and you start to edit them on, you know. But maybe halfway through, so lost 4 weeks, started up with another editor. A few weeks into that, and the producers demanded to see where we were at, and it was a completely unfinished edit. And of course they hated it. What the hell is this? He's ruined the movie. Shut it down. And I was fired then.
Right.
Yeah. Then the edit shifted over to London. Oh yeah, it was all crazy.
I didn't know any of this, but yeah.
Oh no, yeah. So they sort of went edited on Wednesday, went in on the Thursday, and he went, we're closing it down. You're going home on Saturday. It's like, I thought I was got another 6 weeks of editing to go, you know. So that was depressing. Come home, no film, no edit. I'm fired. I'm out of it.
So did you think at that point?
I thought that was it.
Over?
I thought it was the most depressing air flight I've ever had, you know. Going from LA, I'm in LA for 6 more weeks to like, you're going home tomorrow and there's no film. Right. You can imagine, you know. So that's how you get used to criticism and disaster, and by going through it, really.
Yeah. Wow.
Came up with a solution to edit it in London. So the edit got finished off in London then.
I had no idea about any of that.
No.
I thought it'd be a much more simpler process.
No. You imagine, Brandon, the problems you get in the average student film. You've had it. So number one is getting everyone together. Number two is getting people to say yes to act in it. And they're always getting no. And then, and getting I guess getting good actors is the hardest bit for a student film, isn't it? The second then, when you can't get good, you go like, you get willing actors who are maybe not so good. And then it usually ends up with, okay, I'll bloody be in it then. So you think all them pressures, then the locations are funny. They promised you till 9 and now you can only have it till 5, and batteries run out, lights pop. All those problems that you get in student films are just the same in professional, except the stakes are much bigger and much higher.
Yeah, how did you find going from that one to the other? How did you find that them very two different making shorts into going into actually a big feature film? How did you find that journey?
Very stressful. I remember me and Jono thinking we're going to make a meme out of this, where it's like us two sitting down really happy and go, a movie's been greenlit, we're going to make a film, it's going to be great. And then hard cut to the Omaha beach scene in Saving Private Ryan, where it's like just bullets coming at you and problems flying at you. That's my analogy. There was nothing can prepare. I think what Scott, my producer friend, said, just be prepared, because when it starts, it's like a giant ball, a giant machine rolling towards you. And all you've got to do is keep running so it doesn't squash you, Yeah. And it's exactly that.
It's a great way of looking at it though, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, like the start of Indiana Jones,
And how long was it from being greenlit to actually filming? How long was that time?
Quick, actually, yeah. Once it's greenlit, you've got to wait for the money to drop. You've got to get all the pieces to line up. But it's, slow. Let's go! Okay, the movie's out. It's sort of like that,
And after that, it's just...
After that, it's in the hands of the audience, then it's theirs, and that's when you get all the all the bile and all the comments.
But yeah, absolutely incredible piece of work. Cast as well.
Cast's everything, really, as you probably know.
Yeah.
Castings, even in student films, casting's a nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah.
People let you down, which is exactly what happened to us. We had a succession of actors that kind of said yes, then said no, and nearly came on board. You start to get disappointed at that, and then finally you get somebody. So finally we get Olga, who's great, professional, all the rest of
brilliant.
It. Somebody you recognise,
Craig Conway too in the film, great actor from my neck of the woods in the northeast. He was great.
Yeah,
he was brilliant.
Yeah, I've worked with Craig before. I mean, Craig's been there kind of almost in the development process of Mara, because originally we were going to shoot it in the UK. It was all set in the UK, so we did a kind of fake trailer in Manchester. Still reasonably big. Certainly that was the biggest thing I'd done up to then. I think with all the if you add it all up as money, all the favours that we pulled in, I think it was about 10 grand fake trailer. that came out great, and a couple of distributors said, "Oh, we'll distribute this," and we're like, "Well, it's not a movie actually; it's just a pitch for a movie." Craig was involved with that. He's a great actor, is Craig. Great to have on the set. Like, keeps everybody buoyant. Do you know what I mean? He definitely makes the people around him better, act better. Yeah, you hear a lot of actor interviews and they go, "Oh, he's really committed," and you think, "I don't even know what that means." But with Craig, he's really committed. There's a bit which didn't even go in the movie where we've got two police officers, real ones, in a police car, and the idea is that they're arresting him and shoving him in the back of the car. Ended up on the cutting room floor. But I remember going, they were real police, and I said, "Just treat this like a real criminal. Get him restrained, get him handcuffed and shove him in the back of that car, whatever he does." And then secretly went over to Craig and say, all I want you to do is escape from them police.
Brilliant.
You know what I mean? And then we just filmed that. So everybody wasn't acting. Yeah. They were doing it, and he hurt his shoulder and all this trying to do it. But it looked great, but unfortunately it didn't make the cuts,
Can I quickly talk about how things get cut and dropped and things, and you've got a very good term for it that you've always said over the years.
What?
Yeah, it's a very gruesome term.
It's not my term. That's not my term. That's an industry term. So
it's an industry term.
Yeah.
I always thought it was one of Clive's.
No. God, I would never say that. Yeah, I find it hard to say that in front of students because it sounds so grim, Yeah,
you told us about that on the first week of uni. One of our first classes. That was one of the first things you ever told us.
Maybe I ought to modify that in future then.
Yeah.
No, that's an industry term. It's not something I've made up.
Right, and that is basically where you don't have a say on what the final product is going to be, and something you could spend hours and hours, a lot of money, and it could turn out looking incredible. But sadly, it can't go in because it doesn't flow with the story.
Because what you want really from your shoot is you want every shot to be amazing. And then obviously if that happens, or something close to that happens, you can't include every shot in the edit. So you really, it's always going to be part of it. The last thing you want as an editor, and the last thing you want for the film is there's only one shot that's going to work in this, and we've only got one choice. It's better to have lots and lots of choices to shape an edit.
Can you remember the first time you were showing the final rough cut of the film?
I showed the rough cut to the students actually. We did like a kind of secret test screening, and I made some forms for people to fill. This
was the year before I joined.
Was that the year before you joined? Oh, right. So we did that and had a little test screening, and then it was all anonymous, and I fed that back to the editor and the team, and that it's. I think Billy Wilder, who's an old school filmmaker, he said if you ask one person for feedback, it's like you're talking to an idiot. But he said if you get 1,000 people, they become genius. And it's very, very true, And so I thought, let's fill a room up, get them to comment on it honestly. And you can see that, if 10 people have the same comment, I think we need to look at that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they can shape the editing. It was really, really useful. It's something I used to think, what a stupid idea to have a test screening. Now I think it's a great idea if it's done in the right way.
Yeah. So from there, it was on to the premiere. Yeah. How was that, watching your film on a big screen for the first time with an audience too? Like, that feeling must just be so, I can't even think of the word, it's just so unimaginable.
Well, I should imagine I felt the same way as you, because this is the moment you've been waiting for, isn't it, really, where your film's getting a premiere, and and it wasn't really a red carpet event and all that kind of, so it was a sort of subdued premiere. But it was press and interview, and I had to wear a suit and go up and talk on stage. But that screen was huge. I'd never seen. I was probably sick of seeing Mara by the time the premiere came round. I've seen every minute and every second of that film 1,000 times, So the good thing was, yes, the audience was definitely. That's the greatest buzz for me, is watching your film play out in front of an audience.
And with your friends and family as well.
Friends and family there, so you get your little moment in the spotlight, and it was a giant screen in Leicester Square, so that was great.
It must have been an incredible feeling, though.
Yeah, Yeah, very great, very good feeling. Yeah, and it was that same. I think it was that same weekend. I was talking at Comic Con in London as well. So I was on a little horror panel there, which was nerve-wracking and fun again.
Yeah, it must be surreal though after spending all these years on a project. 7 years of pre-production, wasn't it? And then
7 years of development. 1 month of pre-production.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
That's
It's
all right.
not like I've just done 4 years of this goal. Yeah, so 7 years of development, and then finally, shooting must feel like a needle compared to all of that.
Yeah, it's like, it's like yeah.
Are you working on anything now that we might see in the future?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think this is one of the best things about writing, and I would say I'm a developing writer. It's something I practice every day, but I always have. But I'm not. I haven't done my own screenplay written by me, and I think if you're interested in directing, or any department really, it's a good idea to get into writing, because directing's hard because you need a bunch of people and a bunch of kit and a location and all that. Writing, I can do it. I can take a deck chair down by the river, or I can be in a train or an aeroplane. So my saying is, if you're a writer, you're never bored. You'll never be bored again.
Does a lot of your inspiration happen while you're out and about? Because you were talking before about the train carriage in Barcelona. Like when you're out and about places, do ideas sometimes pop in? Like if you see people or you see a place? Or... And
again, if you're really committed to the idea of filmmaking, almost to an obsessive, tunnel vision degree, suddenly you can look at anything as an opportunity. So first is I want to see is like the train. I can use that. That looks really good. That's really cool. Some little video on YouTube will have a little cool idea. Even walking at the corridor up in AV, I saw a picture. Is it from Funkenflug? A little girl who's all black with ashes and smoke coming off her. And that image gave me an idea for a movie about spontaneous human combustion.
Right.
Yeah. So I've got that's one idea brimming away.
Yeah.
I've got a daughter who lives in a foreign country, so I'm a sort of an absent dad, and I only see her, in the summer and stuff. So I'm writing a film about that: a father and daughter, and a poltergeist. Right. So everything.
I knew there'd be some horror slipped in there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm not going to write a romantic comedy, am I? Now? But the next one I'm working on is a thriller, so it's not really so much of a horror, it's more like a kind of suspense thriller.
You're writing that now?
Yeah, writing all those about now, but I've been writing all those for the past few years too, they're not like brand new ideas and I go home and work for 8 hours. I might not even look at them for 2 weeks and then suddenly something will come up, a father-daughter thing,
Yeah, that's sometimes how I find things come through as well. Like you can have an idea and then not come back to it for however long.
They need to percolate, don't they, and to sort of to simmer away in the background.
Yeah, and then you come back to it as well with more of a fresher perspective sometimes as well. You're like, oh, actually, I can build this into it, or build that into it.
And you can those a bit easier after a bit of time. When you're in the middle of the idea, you think it's amazing and nobody can touch it. Put that idea to bed for a month and don't look at it. And a month later you go, I'll get rid of that and I'll get rid of that. And it's much easier to be self-critical,
Yeah, it's very true. I don't know how much time you've got left. I know I've took up a lot of your day.
That's all right, ask away.
I've got a big passion for music as well. So when I was watching the film, I was also thinking about the score and, the whole music that's in it. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that process.
So the process for the score was like one of the producers he started out as a composer, so he's done a lot of music composing for film. So while he was out there for the shoot, so all the time we were out there, we were talking about the score and this and that and all these ideas we had. And then just because of the nature of how things go, he went off to his studio in Kent or wherever it was. Edit was going on in London. I was up in the northeast, phone calls and stuff going around. So basically, he did the score in his place and sent me. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? It was kind of done like that, really. So done semi-remotely.
So it all came after the film was done. Like before you started filming, did you have ideas in mind for that kind of thing? Or
I had some ideas and used some temp score in my edit of it, and temp sounds had a lot to do with the sound. So The score I left to James largely because there were so many other jobs being done, need being doing, and sound jobs as well. So I was in the northeast. You know, all the sound of Mara is me with a basket. I wanted it to sound like a wicker basket. So it was lots of me, like scene. You know, this scene 1, part 10. This is where she's walking across the floor, and I go.
And that was all done in the northeast.
That was all done in the northeast.
Wow.
Yeah, in Newton Aycliffe.
Right.
And Mara moaning is just me going, ooh, in the mic. You know, and I went through the entire script saying, right, these are the footsteps for here, and that went to the sound mix was done over in Hollywood, whilst the edit was here in London and the music was there. And then eventually they put it all together, and then I went over for the final mix and final notes on that.
So it's a huge combination of so many different things going on at the same time.
Yeah, very, very bitty and very chaotic.
Yeah.
It's very much not like you would imagine it was. I'm sure once you get up to Spielberg level, then it's probably that maybe what people think directing's like. But yeah, I think as a director, if you're not totally stressed out and totally like on the edge of something, you probably aren't doing it right, you know. Yeah, and every, you know, friends who are on productions and other friends who are directors, it's reassuring when I visit their set and it looks exactly the same. Because you always think, God, is it me? Why am I always panicking and why do I not know what the hell's going on? But then loads of them don't. It's just that thing, you know, that set, that setting.
Yeah, I remember when we did our third year film, you know, the 3-minute ones. Yeah. And I felt like that 3-minute film for me, I felt like that was probably one of the most important and most stressful times of being in uni, putting that film, and that was only a 3-minute film. Yeah.
You look back now, I mean, I can tell it's stressful for everybody. It's kind of stressful because of the department's in demand for cameras, so you might not get the kit you want. The students have stress because it's just you on your own doing a 3-minute film. Then once you get to the other end of it, like where I'm stood from, it's like you've got 12 weeks to make a 3-minute film. It's easy. You could do that in a weekend now, you know.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, the biggest bit of learning for me was having to cut everything into 3 minutes. The version that I actually put out on YouTube was, I think, 5.5 minutes. But the one that I handed in for you, like having to cut that into 3 minutes because there was a lot of story there, and to tell a story in 3 minutes, that's most difficult.
It's a hard skill. Yeah, and you've got to make. It's a fine line. I mean, that's why we do 3-minute. 3-minute Wonder was a Channel 4 scheme. They used to have 3 minutes at the end of the news, and they'd put a thing on called 3-minute Wonder, and it was basically
that's what it was.
What you do for your minor.
Right, I didn't know that.
It's got to be 3 minutes to the frame. Yeah. Which is why I say 3 minutes to the frame, because it's real life conditions. Yeah. So every year it happens with students.
It was a lot of fun, though. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a learning experience. It's supposed to stress you out. You know what I mean? That's you know. I mean, I'm not trying to make people stressed. I'm trying to show people the real conditions of making a film. Yeah. And if you waste your time in them first 4 or 5 weeks, not just really, you know, just kicking your heels and kind of, well, I've got 12 weeks. You're going to see that it's going to screw you later on. Yeah. You know, the ones that do well start from the beginning, and the hard, like I say, for every year, if I say you've got to do a 3-minute film, I guarantee you, students will go, is it all right if it's 4? And I go, no, it's 3. It says in the brief 3, you know. So a friend of mine coined the term, you've got to learn to embrace the beast. And the beast in that case is you've got to get a good film into 3 minutes. Yeah. And if it needs to be 4, then your idea's wrong. Yeah. You know, it's a wrong idea. It's got to be 3 minutes. And it's very hard. So what people tend to do, and I can't remember what you did, Brandon, but if you had a 5-minute film that works as a 5-minute film, but bloody Clive wants it to be 3 minutes, what you'll tend to do is just cut stuff out till it's 3 minutes. Then it looks like a rushed film. It's like, well, nothing's got time to breathe because you know, I'm not saying you did this, but in that example, you didn't embrace the beast. You made a 5-minute film and not a 3-minute film. Yeah. And you can't squash 5 minutes into 3 without some compromise, you know. So the idea is to come up with a 3-minute idea which is really, really hard to do, you know.
It was a big learning experience. I think it's definitely one of my most favourite films that I've made.
Which one was it? Was yours the chess thing in the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
you do remember it.
Yeah, I do remember it now. Yeah.
Well, you see that many, don't you? So it's
No,
okay.
no. It's just which one was Brandon's this film and that film. Yeah, but the chess thing.
Yeah, that was mine. It was really, really. I think it is definitely one of my favourites. Although I watched it back the other day for the first time since I made it, and I was just thinking like, I wish I did this instead, or that should have been.
Of course,
different.
yeah, exactly.
So many.
I watch
So that
Mara
happens
back,
to you?
and I go Mara back and say, "Oh God, I wish I did.
Do you?
That. I wish I'd done that."
Oh, well, that's
yeah.
reassuring. That's reassuring.
Yeah, because in the end, your film's never finished. It just hits a deadline, and then you let go. You got to let go of it.
I feel like that with a lot of my films. I look back and I think, oh, actually now, because as each year of uni went by, I'd learn more and more, and you think, oh, well, actually, I'd do that completely differently now.
Yeah,
or, there's always
that's
that.
good. That shows that good. That's a good positive sign. Eventually you'll probably go, I'm embarrassed to show my minor. You know what I mean? One day you'll say that, and whereas the other side of it, you were like, I'm so proud of my minor.
I will always be proud of it. It's it was a very important film. It was it was always. It does mean a lot to me, that film. But yeah, I've watched a few of my old films back because they're all sitting on what's now my second channel, and I was like, oh, should I take these down? But I was like, no, let's just leave them up. They were a part of that time.
Yeah, they're part of the process, aren't they?
Yeah, and I wouldn't make something like that now, but just leave it there. It's part of history, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think people like to see the journey, don't they, as well these days, as much as the end product,
I'm making this all about me. I'm so sorry. Let's go.
No, that's all right. No, it's about filmmaking, isn't it?
But I just wanted to know how you felt about that, because for me, I was sort of watching my films back thinking, oh.
Yeah, well, I kind of had the same attitude as you, as like, you realise that, if the graph of your life's going right, the further back you go, the worse the films are. So you might cringe about parts of your minor, but if you look at your year 2 film, there's going to be a lot more. You can see there's going to be a leap to there. So the next thing is it's got to be better than that, So I always tell people, especially in year 1, when they're about to start on their shoot, I always say, if everything's right, this should be the worst film you ever make.
Yeah.
And it's people look at you puzzled for a minute then, and that's because in year 2, from doing this, you'll be better.
I remember you saying that.
If you go worse, something's wrong,
Yeah, I remember you saying that to us 4 years ago.
Yeah,
I remember, and you always say, you've said it the whole time actually. You always used to say, play your first ever film you do at uni against the last ever film that you do.
Yeah,
at uni.
I'd love that to be a thing.
We should do it. You should do it.
Yeah.
Well, ours was slightly different because our final film happened about 1 month into COVID.
Yeah, so that was very different. Yeah.
So I was travelling to London to do mine originally. That was my
I
original
remember
plan.
you were going to go on a bus, weren't you, with acting, theatre people.
Yeah. So that was the plan.
But you asked me before about thinking on your feet and things that come up. I think that's where that's a big lesson the students had, is they learned to think on their feet, or they had to think on their feet. You had to. You were going to go on a coach to London, and then you suddenly found yourself stuck in a bedroom where were you, in Carlisle?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you do? Your dreams have been shattered. There's nowhere to go and film. What you're going to do? So that's what's needed. That's thinking on your feet, right there. You have to completely almost trash your old idea, pick yourself up, get over the depression, and there's still a deadline. The deadline's cold,
Yeah, it never
it's
changed.
still going to be
Never
there.
changed, yeah, it was always the same.
Yeah.
But I loved it. It was a great challenge. And to be honest, even if it wasn't a film for uni, I probably would have still made that anyway.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's fed into the stuff you're doing now. That experience.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a really fun film to make, especially because that's what was going on. That was all the TV shows were doing that as well. Concerts from home and stuff. I was very inspired by that.
So I think the definition of thinking on your feet, doing your homework. How's the BBC doing this? Well, I'm just going to copy that and making it a show from people's bedrooms.
It was great for me because no one could say no because everyone was at home doing nothing.
Yeah, probably desperate to perform, and to do something.
And I've built up a lot of favours while I've been here filming all their shows for them and stuff. So it was time to rein all them favours in.
Yeah, get them all back now, Brandon.
But no, we'll wrap up in a second because I've took far too much of your time.
Oh, don't worry. No, honestly, don't worry about that.
But no, I really appreciate it. One final question that I'd love to end on. Actually, I've got two.
Okay.
If that's okay. First of all, how did the lockdown and stuff affect your work? Did you manage to have more time all of a sudden to actually dedicate to writing and that kind of thing?
Well, okay, the obvious answer is yes, because we were all at home. But teaching went astronomically more difficult, more time consuming. So even if I had more hours at home to do stuff, actually my head was already filled with various, I mean, if you imagine your COVID experience and my involvement with that. I know it's not majorly involved with it, but there's 20 other students in your class with 20 other problems. There's another year and 3 more years of other students with a load of other problems. So there's a lot of COVID problem solving. So I would like to think, I did a bit of work for uni on Monday, then I went and wrote a script, but it just didn't, I was too exhausted really, mentally exhausted.
Well, yeah, because it was talking about thinking on your feet, that was unheard of. It was, you had to adapt in ways that there was never any.
Trying to help people along, making that silly Facebook comments that I kept making all the time and all that.
They were great. Yeah, they were great. Your daily walks. You used
daily
to post
walks,
them,
and I just thought, in my pocket I've got an amazing camera and an amazing video camera and a still camera with my phone. So why that? It's this. There you go. I've got something I can make a funny thing about.
Yeah, it was great. It was really great because it is fun, isn't it? It's sort of I look back on it now, and actually, strangely, I've got a lot of memories from that time, even though it was such a strange time.
Yeah.
And it was really bad for a lot of people. It was. I look back on it and I think, everyone paused for a bit. There was time. Once I finished that film and stuff, there was time I could have finally to do stuff I couldn't before. I wrote a lot of songs in that time, I had some script ideas in that time. So yeah, I do look back and I think it was nice just to have a bit of a pause.
Yeah, it was like a reset, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And it made me I tell you what it did for me, because I made 2 films in lockdown with my phone.
Yeah.
Stuck at my mum's house with just her. So I made a film with me and her and a film with, when my daughter came to visit, we made another film. So I'm just finishing the edit of that. I didn't have any kit and nothing really to speak of. I bought some little cheap bits off on Amazon and just used my phone. I made a couple of horror films which I'll stick on YouTube for a laugh.
Yeah.
So
it must have been lovely though, because you probably would never have maybe done that if it wasn't for the lockdown and stuff.
No, definitely wouldn't. So I'd have definitely been writing and trying to get other films off the ground, which is, you go dark, there's no output.
Yeah. But
because that stuff wasn't going to happen, I became antsy. I was like, I want to do something here, and my filmmaker obsessive nature took over, and I go, right, I'm going to make a film then. Yeah. And then, right, I'm going to make another one. And now we've just shot that zombie one last Monday. I've got 3 films in a year, which is like, I've never made that many films, before.
It is, it's very true. And I like how all the films that, everyone's making at the moment, it's such a back to basics approach as well, like you were just saying, on your mobile. I love how everything is so back to basics at the moment. It's got that really raw feel.
That's what woke up in me, is the power of having a phone. Half of me thinks I'd love to make a 3-year degree using only phone, because you learn the real stuff about filmmaking with a phone, because there's no technical nonsense. It's all about pure filmmaking, whereas people get flummoxed by cameras and lenses. I mean, obviously those things make things look better, and you can do, but you can teach technical. You can read the manual, and it might take you 100 times before you get the technical thing right, but you're going to get it right because it's technical. Whereas the real filmmaking stuff, thinking on your feet, how to construct a scene, how to make a story, that doesn't matter what camera you use for that. And the phone forces you, there you go, my phone's set now. Right, what am I going to do? Brandon, I want you to walk over there. You know what I mean? You can't get lost in lights and, and all that.
Yeah.
So I loved it.
Very freeing, wasn't it? It was very, you had no boundaries. You could just, even though we were, in a lockdown and stuff, it still felt so free. It
relied solely on your imagination.
Yeah, no, it did. I actually started to use my camera. At the end of first year, I bought a new camera, and I never actually touched it throughout the whole time at uni. And yeah, in the lockdown, I was like, yeah, I'm going to start using my camera more. And I got some batteries for it because I didn't know where the other ones were. And, on daily walks and stuff, I'd take it out and get into photography a little bit. And I was starting to do
just
stuff like that.
Just getting into that practice of, right, every time I go out, I'm going to take a camera because there might be footage. I
Yeah,
saw it
exactly.
in the news yesterday. Did you see it? Like a lorry had crashed that had loads of tomato juice or something in it.
Right.
So this road's covered in bright red. I
Wow.
thought if I was going past there in my car, I would hope I had my camera on me,
I'd turn that into some kind of film.
Yeah, there's something, and I got loads of, like, part way through the lockdown, my laptop broke down, which meant I had no way of getting in touch with anybody. So I had to travel up to Carlisle to get my laptop replaced. And that journey up, I took loads of footage of empty M6. You see one lorry every 10 minutes. That footage, I'm sure, is going to have a use one day. Just on my phone, on the dash cam thing, on the little phone holder.
Yeah.
I got a rainbow going into the empty empty motorways. Yeah, and I thought, well, this footage is going to be...
You'll find a use for it.
Yeah, I'm sure I will at some point, or maybe I won't. I even stuck my dash cam to the outside of my window and had the camera outside and got some little car shots of just empty roads,
Well, that's it, yeah. When is the M6 ever going to be empty ever again like that? Probably never.
It'll be very difficult if you wanted an empty M6 shot to get it now. You're going to have to, rotoscope cars out and whatever. Yeah,
it was a very interesting time. I think there was a lot of learning that came from this last year, and there's been a lot of different ways of doing stuff and adapting and stuff. And now things are starting to look more promising too. Yeah. I think, it was an interesting time.
It was indeed, yeah.
So finally then, the last question. How would you sum up Mara in one word? If that's even possible.
Right. Do you mean the film or my experience of it, or?
Let's do both. We'll do both.
Okay, so the film.
Start with the film.
Scary. That would be my great hope. That's my number one thing I want my films to be. I don't know, scary to one person, but it's not to another. But I would hope it was scary.
I thought it was.
And can I get 2 words for the other one?
I'll let you. Go on.
Character building.
Character building, right.
I think Mara changed my personality.
Really?
Yeah.
Did it change your approach, directing style as well? Did it?
Yeah. Changed everything, really.
So we've got plenty to look out for in the future.
I hope so, yeah. If all my ideas come true, there'll be loads of great films coming out, so yeah.
I look forward to seeing all of them. But yeah, thank you so much for giving up your time.
All right, thanks for having me, Brandon, yeah.
It's been a pleasure. There's a card for you behind this.
This?
Yeah, there's a little card for you to say thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much for coming on. And thank you for teaching me for the last 4 years about everything I know about filmmaking.
Yeah. Look how it came round after 4 years, eh? Who'd have thought you were interviewing me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brandon.